Hi everybody. Um, well, I'm doing another video today, and it's this one's a pure speculation video. Um, Two or three things kind of fell into place today that reinforced a scenario I was just idly speculating about a few days ago when I did this video here. It's called All These Things That Are About to Happen. And what I did is I went through, um, well, first I went through Revelation 2 and 3 talking about the promises to the overcomers, then to demonstrate in Revelation 4 and 5 that the church is in heaven before the sealed judgments begin. And then later in the video, and I'm going to play a clip of this, hopefully just a few minutes, fairly brief, I was made a quick comment about how what it looks like is going to happen here in the first few seals potentially is going to be a fulfillment of the Shemittah year that Rabbi Khan has been talking about, and I get a little further confirmation, maybe of a second thing as well, because Rabbi Mark Biltz, who kind of made famous the blood moon stuff, I brought that into this video as well, demonstrating how the first blood moon that we had, followed with the annular eclipse, may have been fulfillment of Joel 2. The sun goes dark and the moon to blood before the day of the Lord. And then we saw here in Revelation 6 that we have um, a reference to the sun going black and the moon turning to blood in the day of the Lord, right in the opening seal judgments, which would probably put it toward the early part of the tribulation period. So, you know, I'm getting further confirmation of this scenario, which leads to this video today. And again, I chalk this all up as just a scenario. The problem is it's going to be too late. By the time we know exactly which scenario is going to play out, the church is going to be gone. That was the point of looking at all these Revelation 2, 3, 4, and 5 passages. Church is going to be gone. And so is any of this video material going to be left around as evidence of the fact that, yep, the church went to heaven? It wasn't laser beamed by the aliens or whatever, and then setting the expectation for whoever's left after to understand really what was happening coming into the tribulation period, to show them that this is the tribulation and that they need to give their heart to Jesus. That really was the point of this video. And so let's go through what happened to me today, replay some of these steps, and then I appreciate comments at the end. Again, this is a speculative scenario, but I think it's becoming more plausible with just some of the stuff that was pulled together today. So let's listen up first to Rabbi Danoon, and then we'll get into a Mark Biltz clip, and I'll end it here with some of the stuff I did here a few days ago. So this first clip is Vatican signs a covenant with Israel. He again is speculating, but listen up to what he's got to say, and then we'll follow up with some comments and a passage.
Dream, and is a very sad day indeed in Israel, as one of the headlines here is King David's tomb room conquered by the church. This is out of Arutz Shiva's or Israel's national news publication. It says mass service held again at David's tomb compound, this time at the room with his grave marker. Ever since the Pope came there and they had a mass in the upper room, the place above King David's tomb, they have celebrated a mass continually week after week. Now, some people might say, well, Steve, the Catholic Church is a Christian people and they're just trying to worship God. But you have to understand, the root of the Vatican is not Christian. It is paganistic roots from the very beginning. And this is one of the things we've been trying to help educate many people on. Many of the Catholic people, many Catholics even follow this ministry that have come out of the Catholic Church, that will attest to you that their eyes have been open even from the things that we've been saying. But what I'm really concerned about is that we are overlooking that literally before our eyes, biblical prophecy is actually being fulfilled right before your eyes. And I don't normally go out and say things like this. Even the title of the video, Vatican signs covenant with Israel. Could this really be Daniel chapter 9? And that's what my concern is. And I'm not saying that I know they've signed a covenant. I don't have no idea if they did or did not. But for the Israeli government to forcibly block Jews from one of the most holy sites in Israel to the Jews and to throw them out so that the Vatican can conduct a mass inside a Jewish holy spot, I mean, we got to wake up. You don't think that the Vatican doesn't have control of Jerusalem, then you need to wake up. And this is what we're going to talk about tonight. Now,
Okay, so here's the deal. You got to watch the rest of that video from Rabbi Stephen Ben-Danoon. He really goes into demonstrating how something must have changed in and around the time of the Pope's visit to the Temple Mount, because now you see, they're holding Catholic services in the tomb of King David, and he replays a whole bunch of things that have transpired that all point to some new agreement must be in effect, something new must be going on, and yet it's just not been revealed yet, but the activities are occurring that point toward that a covenant's been made. And he pointed us right back to Daniel 9:27 here, and I want to read something because this is part of the speculation I was doing in my video a couple of days ago, and now what Rabbi Danoon is saying is yet further kind of confirmation maybe that this scenario is the one that's going to play out. So in Daniel 9:27, it specifically talks about this covenant. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for a week. And now that he, and you do the antecedent work and you say, okay, it's the Antichrist, shall confirm the covenant with many for a week. Now, if you read this too fast, you would think that it's the confirmation that occurs and then the kickoff of the tribulation occurs, because it says, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make desolate, even until a consummation. What we've got now, which I was idly speculating a few days ago, is he will confirm the covenant. And you could imply in that the covenant has been signed, and what happens is the Antichrist confirms it. And if you go too fast, you say with many for 1 week. Now it's the covenant that's 1 week long, and the week here in this is going to be the 7 years. So all I'm going to say is then it's plausible that the covenant could be signed. It's a 7-year agreement, and that the Antichrist later confirms the covenant, and that doesn't, to me, go against Scripture. So it was, it's still in the idle speculation category, but as the video there at Stephen Ben-Danoon was doing, you almost have to agree that some sort of covenant has occurred that allows this Catholic Mass services to be held in, Jewish most sacred holy sites that they still have available to them in King David's tomb area and the like. So go watch the video. Now, let's go back now. Here, take a look at the next thing that's sort of plopped into place here, which is this blood moon phenomena. Now, that's been popularized by Messianic pastor Mark Bilds, and he's here in this YouTube video being interviewed about what he thought about the Shemittah year that Jonathan Cahn has made more obvious, let's say, through his book, The Harbinger. Pastor Bills here is going to take a look at how does that relate to the blood moons and what does the Shemittah year mean. So here, hang on, just take a listen.
Now, with that in mind, how many of you remember in 1994 when the Shoemaker-Levy comet pummeled Jupiter with 21 fragments? Any of you remember that?
Oh, absolutely.
You can go on the internet, Google Shoemaker-Levy comet, and it will tell you how it was in July of 1994 that 21 fragments hit Jupiter. Well, now remember, the Shemittah year is a year of judgment. Well, guess what? That happened in a Shemittah year. Now, guess what weekend it was?
What?
The 9th of Av. That was the weekend that the 21 fragments hit it. Now, guess what the Torah portion that all the Jews read that weekend was? Okay.
What?
It was.
This is exciting. I don't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Help me.
It was Deuteronomy 1 through 6, which is the greatest commandment to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. But in Hebrew, they don't say Deuteronomy. It's Devarim, which means these are the words. And so here, God is speaking, these are my words. And this Jupiter is being pummeled by these 21 fragments. Well, it's a Shemittah year. Well, what's 21 divided by 3? 7. So God was saying the next 3 Shemittah years would be times of judgment.
In 7 Shmittah.
And the
7 years.
7 years. So 1994, you add 7 years, that takes you to 2001, which was the next Shemittah year. Well, guess what happened on Rosh Hashanah that year? Elul 29, Rosh Hashanah. The Dow fell exactly 7% at the beginning of the 7th month, and it was the largest drop of the Dow in history to that time.
9/11 took place then.
I was exactly 7 days before. This is 9/11. This is 9/17. So exactly 7 days before this is 9/11.
The probably worst tragedy to hit America.
God is warning. God was sending a warning during the Shemitah year.
So we have 7 years. So then what would happen in the next 7 years, Shemitah years?
That's 2008. And what happened exactly on Elul 29, Rosh Hashanah? We had
Same
the biggest
date?
drop. Same day on the biblical calendar. See, on our calendar, it was a different day. But we don't make the connection because we're not on the right calendar.
Right.
It was on Elul 29, Rosh
It's like
Hashanah.
trying to get somewhere in the wrong map.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what it is. And what happens? You can look on the internet. The Dow fell 7%, a $700 billion loss on a failed
Again.
$700 billion bailout on the first day of the 7th month of the biblical calendar.
The day before Rosh Hashanah again.
Yes.
You said that there was going to be 3 Shemitah years of judgment.
Right.
So that was the first 2.
Yeah. So this next one is 2015. The same day there's a solar eclipse. This could be the 3rd strike. It could be potentially the coming global economic collapse. It happened in 2001. It happened in 2008. Not only could you
It's
potentially...
coming at some time.
when you look at just read the news. In the next 2 years, we're talking about all kinds of financial calamities.
Is this
Okay, so there you hear from Mark Bills. Now, earlier in this video, Blood Moon, Shemittah events, Jim Baker show here, I guess is where we're getting this one from. Mark Bills goes into the Old Testament and demonstrates how the Shemitah went from a time of celebration for the Jews, the freeing of the slaves and the canceling of debts, to a time of judgment for the Jews, and it had to do with the Jewish people putting their trust in Egypt, and then God made it a time of judgment. I'd ask you to go back, watch this whole video if you want better context, because Pastor Mark gets into why it turned from a Shemitah year being freeing of slaves and debts into a judgment. And then, like I did show in the clip, he goes through how the judgment potentially was demonstrated as coming in 1994, the strike against the financial system in 2001, 2008, and then he closes with that being the likely scenario. Well, he's careful to say he was speculating, but that being a plausible scenario for 2015, which leads me into sort of the last chunk here that I wanted to get into today, and that's has to do with the video I did just a few days ago. I was just kind of speaking out loud as the Spirit led, and now things feel like they're lining up a little bit better. So here, hang on. So yeah, today's the 10th. I think I did this video maybe on the 7th or 8th of June 2014, and the video was all these things are about to happen. Now we're just coming down into this part here where I'm talking about Revelation 6, so hang on, take a listen here. Pop over to 6, and I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, I heard, as it were, a noise of thunder, and one of the four beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on it had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth to conquering and to conquer. So the first thing that's going to happen is conquering and to conquer. And some say this is the conquering by peace because it is a bow and no arrows. So we got to look forward to that, where there's a collapse, possibly a political collapsing around one world ruler is what this looks like it's pointing toward, or a collapsing of the political systems toward one world rulership, which is clearly pictured later in Revelation. The next thing we've got, and he opened second seal, and the beast said, "Come and see." And went out another horse, and was red, and power was given him set thereon to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. And so we definitely got war coming next. And then he opened the third seal and said, "Come and see." And behold, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard the voice in the midst of the four beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. And see that thou hurt not the oil and the wine." Okay, and that definitely is picturing economic collapse, as well as the beginning of famine, or lack of availability of food, right? Okay, so what we got there is, the collapsing of control in the first seal. Sure appears like that's what the rider and the white horse is about, is by peace they're bringing control in to what's going to be the Antichrist reign. And I've went into that, and then we got into what looks like a fulfillment potentially of the Shemittah in economic collapse that matches what Mark Bills was talking about. And now I get into a little bit more speculation, so hang on, and this will be the last kind of chunk that we take a look at. This is a real interesting one. And I beheld when he opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth, and the moon became as blood. So we're going to read about the effects of the earthquake here in a minute, but we're going to have a great earthquake, and then the sun becomes black, and the moon became as blood. Now, we're in the middle of the blood moon tetrads, and we know from Joel 2 that the sun has to go black and the moon to blood before the day of the Lord. And now, as most Bible scholars that study eschatology will tell you, Revelation, we're in the day of the Lord, and here we got another sun going black and a moon to blood. Now, this is why this, to me, it is saying, if we have to see this twice, we know we just went through it's called an annular eclipse and a blood moon here just a couple months ago. Could that be the Joel 2 fulfillment? And it's also repeated in Acts 2. Could that be that fulfillment? And now we have the Revelation 6:12 one, where it's repeated again, and we know in 2015 we have the blood moons and the major solar eclipse next year. I'm just throwing that out there as a scenario. Matter of fact, if you go back through here Um, Especially if you watch some of Jonathan Cahn's teaching on the Harbinger in the Shemitah year. 2015 is the year of the Shemitah, and what did the Shemitah point to? Well, economic collapse and war, and that was patterned in the Old Testament. So I guess, you know, I'm loath to kind of throw these ideas out there because somebody will throw it right back in my face if if this doesn't play this way. But if you look at Scripture, and that's what we're doing here, the patterns that we're seeing, sun going black and the moon to blood out of Joel 2 and Acts 2, happened once already, and it was supposed to happen before the day of the Lord. Now we're in the day of the Lord, and we see the sun becomes black as sackcloth and the moon to blood, and we know there's the full eclipse coming next year as well as the super blood moon. Doesn't that seem to fit in order with the Shemitah year as well? Economic collapse, war, and the like. So, okay, well, let's wrap this one up. So I just felt this is just more weight against, kind of what was idle speculation there the other day, that there appears to have been some sort of agreement between the Vatican and Israel around the use of the Temple Mount. And if Rabbi Danoon is right, could that have been the covenant of Daniel 9:27? And on careful reading of Daniel 9:27, it sure seems like it's plausible that the covenant could be signed and then the Antichrist comes back and confirms it. And it's the covenant that is 7 years, not necessarily 7 years from the confirmation. That may be trying to pick that passage apart a little too much, but I think it's plausible. And the reason why all of these got me going is, we've been looking at the videos from Brother Reese Wise, and we know that all those day counts are incredibly implausible to have been random, and yet those counts will begin to fail here in a week or two. I forget which day, if he's picked a day yet, or where it really melts down. Now, if you back up and you say, boy, on careful reading of Daniel 9:27, the covenant can be signed starting the 7 years, and the Antichrist is the one that confirms it. If that is a plausible reading, could one of these original days that Reese found with the signs in the heaven, I mean, we had taken a real heavy look at May 14th, the 66th celebration of Israel being declared as a nation, as a very plausible day for the signing of the covenant. And could that have actually have happened? Because now we see evidence that some new agreement is in place on the Temple Mount. And then Reese also had found some very significant signs in heaven around Ascension Day. So, is one of those 2 days, did something actually occur because the Pope was in Israel at the time? And like I say, now we see evidence that something has changed. And then if we look into the Shemitah year and stuff, everybody's looking for that economic collapse, which certainly could be a fulfillment then of the Shemitah judgment from God. And we see here in Revelation 6, we certainly have economic collapse. So I'm just laying out the scenario that if this is right, and if, we're getting more weight on this scenario being plausible, it really, to me, says we are very, very close to the church leaving. So give your heart to Jesus, because we may not have any more time here. To God be the glory, and keep looking up, everybody.